Hey, this is Kyle. Let's write some code. Today I'm just going to be talking about fun little common patterns that you do with JavaScript prototypes. These are just things that I use frequently, and it's going to be kind of a random grab bag. If you are unfamiliar with JavaScript prototypes, I recommend watching a previous video I did about it. I will put a link in the description. And if you want the same setup that I got running here, I will also have a link in the description. So let's start off with my favorite pattern. I use it in almost all my code. Typically, if you have a class here, you can create new instances of this bear class by saying new bear. But if you're using a module bundler or IO.js or Node.js, typically you would be exporting this class by saying module exports bear, and it would be living in a different file just for organization purposes. So we're going to put this bear class here in our bear.js file and save it. And then in here, instead of having our class here, because this is our application, we're going to say var bear equals, and we're going to require that local file we just created by saying /bear.js. And this works all as expected. If I console log out our instance grizzly, we see, in fact, we do get our bear class. Now, since our class here is also a function, we can do something fun because maybe somebody doesn't want to use the new keyword here. Maybe they want to be more explicit with their naming. Maybe they say CreateBear, and they want a function here that they can call to create a bear. So we can accommodate this as well. And so what we do here is in our constructor, we say if it's not this instance of bear. And this is basically saying, is this instance that we're calling here, is it an instance of bear? Are we creating a class here? And if we're not, if we're just calling this as a function, we're not using the new keyword, we're just calling it here with our function call, then instead we are going to do return a new bear. So what we're doing is we're saying we're going to use this name of the function, and if you're calling this just like a normal function, we're going to return a new instance of it. So we're going to save this, and you'll see that when we say grizzly equals CreateBear, and we're naming this function right here when we call it here, we still get an instance of our bear here, and it works just as expected. So it's this pattern in your constructor is super convenient, makes it super flexible for others and to decide on how they want to use your API. So now when creating classes, usually you want to start passing in objects or parameters. And so here in our CreateBear call, we are going to say, we're going to pass an object literal here. So we're just going to use these curly braces here. We're going to say, what type of bear is this? This is a grizzly bear. And what does the bear say here? It says grr. So we just created an object here that we're passing in as the first parameter to our CreateBear method here, and it's going to have the type and say. And so here we want to include this, so we're going to just say, I'm just going to call it options here, and we need to also pass it into our instance here. So if somebody's calling it with a method, then we're going to pass down the options into here. So now we have access to the options variable here to use it. And so for now, we're just going to console log out our options. And when the class is created, you'll see that we have this object with our options passed to it. But what happens if somebody doesn't pass any arguments or any parameters to our class? We get this undefined. So we want to make sure that options is always an object. So what we're going to do is we're going to say options equals options, and then we're going to use the double pipes here and say or, and we're just going to use two curly braces. and this says it's just an object. So basically we're saying, okay, options equals options, just make it itself. But if this is undefined, we're gonna just turn it into just a straight object, literal here. So now if somebody doesn't provide any options to your class here, it will still be an object here. And so this is great too. So what if we don't care, or we want to say this type, and we want to know what type of bear we're having here. So we'll say options type, and maybe the person did not pass in a type, and so if we say this type here, we have undefined. So we can use the same pattern by saying the double pipes or bear. Let's just say if you don't pass in a type, the type is now a bear. So then on this end is if the user does pass in a type and say grizzly and saves it, you'll see that it will just first assign this type to the options type that was passed in and not bear, and so we get our type grizzly here. And so we can just continue on and just say this say or says option says nothing. And so it's just a good way to default any kind of arguments passed in to a function. Another fun little pattern is method chaining. So let's just add some methods to our bear class here. So we'll say the bear can growl. So we'll say function, and then here we're just going to console log out this type bear says, and we'll say what it says here. And so we're just using the properties that we have assigned in our constructor here. And so then if we go here to when we use our instance here, and we growl here, you'll see that the grizzly bear says nothing. We've defaulted the type says to the word nothing, but the user has supplied the type. So that's why it says the grizzly bear says nothing. But now we're going to add some more things the bear can do. Bears typically can walk and eat. And so we'll say this bear eats and this bear walks. So now when our user is using our bear, they can now say the grizzly bear growls, the grizzly bear walks, and the grizzly bear eats. And as you can see that the grizzly bear did all those things that the user asked it to do, but they're having to type grizzly over and over and over, and that can be a little cumbersome. So what if instead we can just chain these methods together? And then the grizzly bear can just do all these things one after the next, after the next. So to do this, in our methods here, we're going to return this. So this refers to the instance of our class. And so in our method here is if we just return this, then that means we're returning the instance after the function is called. So if I save this here, and so what happens is on our grizzly instance, we're going to call growl, and then that's going to return the grizzly instance, which lets us call walks, which also returns the grizzly instance and then lets us call eats. And so as you can see, the grizzly bear still does all those same things, but we don't have to type grizzly over and over and over. So I hope you found some of this information useful, and if you have, please share this video. I'd really appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos, please subscribe. Thanks again for watching.